Hello, I'm live, and welcome to another live stream from the only source of information you need to not only survive the current apocalypse, but actually enjoy it. And I'm glad we were able to get this going. For some reason, this time around, I really couldn't figure out how this worked. Thankfully, Ala Toledo was here to help out, and he was able to talk me through it. Say hello, Ala Toledo.
Hello, hello. Welcome to another live stream. Nobody's on yet, but hopefully people join soon.
If you cannot hear or see me or hear Ala Toledo, please just let us know in the chat. We'll adjust that while we're going. This is kind of informal, so it doesn't bother me.
Well, you didn't announce anything, so nobody was prepared for it, I guess.
Wait a second now. I got like 3 or 4 Facebook friends. They would have known because I did go to Facebook and say we're going to go live in an hour.
Well, did you have anything prepared to talk about? Or?
I actually do. I don't. But what happened is 3 or 4 days ago, I was out thinking about what I wanted to do, and I came up with something. So I put a little folder on my computer desktop, and I promised myself to get back to it. And I've opened that folder maybe 4 or 5 times. And I did type out a few scriptures, but I do have a topic. Hopefully there will be people out. Is there anybody watching now?
We got about 4 people, so nobody's chimed in the chat, so I don't know who they are.
Well, I'm going to ask a question, and then I'll ask it a few more times, and in about 5 minutes, I'll go ahead and get started. But until then, we'll just talk about what's going on. What's going on with you, Al Toledo?
Well, I'm trying to figure out what to do after my sabbatical. I'm halfway through my sabbatical, and I don't know what to do. So I'm wondering if I should go back to a corporate job or if I should try to find some sort of small enterprise that's more righteous, I guess would be the name. What do you think?
Well, you know, I have a tent. I have 2 tents that are brand new. I haven't even opened them yet. If I set those up on my property and move into those tents, you could move your family into my house.
Well, we had talked previously about that property that's right next door to you. Maybe I should buy that one.
I do not want to wish anything bad on anybody, but there's the kids. I've talked to the kids not long ago, and they said that they're going to sell the thing back there with the house or the old abandoned house and a couple of FEMA trailers or whatever. But they can't do anything because their mom's in a nursing home and she's not able to make normal decisions, and none of the kids wants to make a decision for her. But as time goes on, eventually she's going to pass away, and her kids are going to. As soon as that comes available, I'll be calling you. Al Toledo, come here.
Well, I really want your opinion. So I know you don't necessarily totally agree with sabbaticals, and you're kind of on a permanent sabbatical yourself, but what do you think from a biblical standpoint after the 7-year sabbatical is over? You're just supposed to go back to the way things were before, or what?
Well, that rule was put in place just as like for the Jewish people. The Jewish people, when they were brought into the Promised Land, that was a sabbatical. It was supposed to last forever, but they refused to engage in natural law. And so God gave them an unnatural law. And as part of that, he gave them all the cycles of rest. Now, and it was like a kind of a mechanical rest. It wasn't real rest. It was just don't perform any of the normal tasks associated with making money. Don't build houses, that kind of stuff. But I mean, we're about to enter into a time when we will go into a rest for all eternity. In fact, it calls it a 1,000-year rest. But the reality is that's only a 1,000-year rest, because once that 1,000-year rest is over, which is the 7th Yom, the 7th millennium, then we go into an eternal rest. But what do I think about our current situation? I think every human that's alive should, if you're not completely obsessed with breaking out of the system, there's something wrong with you. Now, whether you accomplish that or not, that's probably not going to happen. But when you see people that act like they really want to go back into paradise, and yet they're jacking up their credit card bills and they're, engaging in all kinds of stupid things to go into debt, it indicates that they really don't want that. I've seen people that had all their bills paid. They had a wonderful place to live. They had plenty of money in the bank. They were getting Social Security, and they went to work at Walmart greeting people simply because they cannot stand the thought of not being part of Satan's hierarchy. You know, this right now, there's a lot of people out there that physically cannot take a 1 year rest. I've done that most of my life. I didn't do it, you know, ritualistically, but by instinct. Every time I got a big old pile of money in my pocket, I quit working. And I've taken a couple of years off before without working, just, you know, because I had the money to do it. And I think, you know, a normal human being, a decent human being would do anything in their power to spend more time with their family and less time with Satan's family.
Well, that's actually my dilemma right now, is that I think things have been great during the first 6 months of my year. And now I'm afraid to go back to normal life, quote unquote, normal life.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, because it's not, as far as normal life, probably I've got the single most normal life on the planet, and it's miserable. Every day there's some kind of thing that just I hate, but I can't get out of it. That piece of junk car I got, you know, I've been over years and years and years thinking I'm not putting any money into this car, but the engine don't burn oil, gets good gas mileage, and everything else on the car is broke. So I've been all week going back and forth to the parts store and to I don't do any work on the car anymore. I can't even hold a wrench. So I've been bringing it to my mechanic, go get parts, bring it back to my mechanic. And I really thought I was at about $1,000 into this thing. It was about, I think we're at 600. But I mean, it's got now if the engine blows up, I got to put a new engine in it because I've got everything else on the car, you know, all the bearings and seals and new belts, new hoses, every belt, every hose I had replaced. And the brakes, all the rotors, and have, you know, one new rotor and spun the other, and got new pads and brake pads and brake shoes. So,
speaking of that, Matt Wilcox says he checks out your hot rod channel. I didn't know you still had your hot rod channel.
I didn't even know that. I went the other day. I just was in that. You sent me a thing that said YouTube channel switcher, and so I got that thing on my desktop, and I thought, well, I'm going through and deleting all the shortcuts I don't need, and I clicked on that, and there was a link. It's now had two of those hot rod channels. Both of them had the same name, but one of them was associated with this channel, and the other one was completely separate, completely different email. And I can't get back into that one, and that's the one that everybody goes to. It seems like nobody hardly finds the one that's associated with this channel. But anyways, yeah, it's there. I just looked, and there's like a whole bunch of views on some of the videos. So maybe I need to, because I kind of migrated all of the videos over onto my sustenance and covering channel. I need to ask my question again. Or did I even? I never asked it the first time. Okay, I'm going to ask this question. We'll give you about a minute to give me an answer. Cleanliness is next to godliness. Everybody ready? What chapter and verse of the Bible is that in? Starting now. Got 60 seconds. Al Toledo, do you know the answer already? Because you seem to always catch on to everything before I want you to.
Well, I don't know. I mean, boy, quoting that, you know, the synoptic the synoptic gospels, I don't remember that ever being in those, and those are the ones I focus on. So it must have been something else, or maybe it wasn't even in there. That's probably the trick question, right?
We'll give everybody else a chance.
Well, actually, as we're waiting, let's get some hellos out of the way. Rebecca Hammond says, "Woo! Hi, Henry." Charles H says, "Hey, everybody, Merry Christmas." Uncle Nesta is here. He says,
"Wow!
Can you believe it? He's back."
Yes.
He says, "Greetings, all. I hope you're doing well physically, Henry." He mentions that he had something near the end of our last live streams that I guess he's worked his way through. He got assaulted by Satan's police, and they charged him a lot of money. Next is Matt Wilcox. He says, "Merry Christmas," but he says it's been pretty sparse this year. Meshu Deuce says, "Hey, y'all." And Kitchcool's here. He says, "Hey."
I'll try not to keep you up too late. He's probably off for the holidays. He can stay up all he wants.
Looks like the answers are coming in. Uncle Nesta says it's not biblical. Mishu Du says it's not in the Bible. Matt Wilcox says veritum no. I guess that means true. It's not. And then Uncle said, yep, that's it. And Uncle Nesta says, mad love back to you.
You and I need to talk about. See, you're hip to all this stuff. You have to just be real quiet. You gave the answer away. That's how come they know it.
Well, I mean, it could have been in something that Paul said or one of the letters that Paul said, but honestly, I just stay with the synoptics, and I've been reading Revelation a lot recently too. So
that seems to come up quite a bit, even in the stuff that I do. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started with today's Bible subject. And the reason this is let me see if please let me find it. Yeah. No, that's not it. Doggone it. See, you need to move in with me just so this stuff doesn't happen. All right. Cleanliness is next to godliness is not a Bible verse. And welcome to the only source of information you need to not only survive the current apocalypse, but actually enjoy it. And that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about cleanliness is next to godliness and how important cleanliness actually is to being accepted by God. Okay, even as a child, I knew that a lot of the stuff I was being told was nonsense. But as a child, you listen to grown-ups, which is a good thing. So no matter what they tell you, if you do it, there's nothing wrong with that. And so I was able to recognize that a lot of the stuff didn't sound quite right, but I didn't think there was anything wrong with my parents. I figured there was something wrong with me. And the same thing with the church hierarchy. We were Catholic growing up, and I really loved the priest and the brothers and the nuns, and I just knew that they were God's chosen helpers, and they would never lie to me. And so I kind of, I'm not in that situation anymore. I've had years and years of abuse by religious people. So, and I've read the Bible. So now I know that I'm not supposed to be involved with them. Anyway, let's see what it says here. Matthew chapter 15, verses 1 through 9. This is important. And this also is related to things that I have been told by church hierarchy. The Catholic Church, I've heard this nonsense. Protestant religions like Southern Baptist and whatever, all the ones I was involved with. And then the Jehovah's Witnesses, they've all taken a stand on this verse that I'm about to read you. Then Pharisees and scribes came to Jesus from Jerusalem and said, "Why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? For they do not wash their hands when they eat." He answered them, "And why do you break the commandment of God for the sake of your tradition? You hypocrites! Well did Isaiah prophesy of you when he said, 'This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far removed from me. It is in vain that they worship me, because they teach man-made doctrines.'" So anyway, here's the point. What does the Bible say here? It says that Jesus and his disciples were being berated by the Pharisees because they did not wash their hands. So Jesus describes that hand washing, washing our hands before we eat, as a ritual. Now, are we to take it that Jesus never bathed at all? Or is it something else going on here? Well, I'm going to tell you my take on it. If my hands are dirty, I wash them. If my hands are not dirty, I do not wash them. But there have been times when I was with people and they said, "Everybody go wash your hands. We're going to eat." I'm like, I don't have to wash my hands. They're clean. Go wash your hands. That doesn't make any sense. Everybody washes their hands before they eat. That is a ritual. Now, I've seen medical reports saying that people who do not wash their hands before they eat are like 1,000,000 times more likely to get a cold or something. But I've never seen that play out. You know, I don't understand how people can come up with that and who's doing these tests and what kind of, you know, restrictions they have on people so that they can actually accurately determine if washing hands makes people cleaner. But anyways, the way this is always explained to me, has always been explained before by the churches, is through a loophole that is found at Mark chapter 7 and verses 1 through 4, describing the same exact event. It says, when the Pharisees gathered to him with some of the scribes who had come from Jerusalem, they saw that some of his disciples ate with hands that were defiled, that is, unwashed. For the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they wash their hands properly, holding to the tradition of the elders. And when they came from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash. Now, in some translations, you can go look this up. It's not in all of them, but in some translations, and the one that I'm most familiar with is the New World Translation. It says, for the Pharisees, okay, what we just read, it says that the Pharisees do not eat unless they wash. That's all it says. But a lot of translations say, for the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they wash their hands up to the elbow. What I'm going to tell you seems to be accepted by every religion that calls itself Christian, even though they're supposed to be different religions, that Jesus and his apostles would have always washed their hands. The reasons the Pharisees were getting on to them is because Jesus and his apostles only washed their hands, and the ritual tradition was to wash up to the elbows. Right? So that's where we get that. And it's, if that's in the Bible, that's a possibility, right? Well, I looked up the word that's used there is Strong's Strong's G4435, which is pygmy, which means using the clenched fist as a weapon. It's not so much for punching, but to use it to hold a sword, or to throw a spear, or to use anything that you use that would require that you grab. That's all it is. You grab a spear, you grab your bow and arrow, or you could, I guess, apply this to a fist fight. But in all of Greek literature, it's never really applied to that. It seems to be just about using weapons. So it says the Pharisees, pygmy. That means that they clean their hands as if they were in battle against uncleanness. That's all it means. This stuff about up to the elbow is derived from the fact that if they're using their hand to throw a spear, it would involve the whole arm. But that's not what pygmy means. That stuff is just something that some church elder threw in there in order to keep people believing that cleanliness is next to godliness, that you got to wash your hands before you eat. You know, another thing is anytime you go to the bathroom, you're supposed to wash your hands. Now, there is no poison, you know, or any kind of germs on urine. Urine is like one of the most sterile things that exist in nature. And yet we're supposed to go to the bathroom. We're supposed to wash our hands when we go to the bathroom. My dad says when he was in the Army, they had a guy that would come in. Everybody would go to the bathroom. They'd wash their hands. This guy would go in and wash his hands and then go to the bathroom, because the tradition in his family is to keep his genitals clean. It was because once he touched those, he didn't have to wash his hands because they would be clean by virtue of the fact that he washed his hands before he touched it. But anyway, getting back to the point is that there's a lot of stuff that's taught by the churches that's really important to the churches that's fake. And I don't think anybody is going to be sent to the eternal fires of damnation for washing their hands or for not washing their hands. If you're uncomfortable eating with your hands dirty, then wash your hands. But to do it every single time, even when your hands are not dirty, that is a ritual, and rituals are nonsense. And even though there are people who say there's evidence that that's a good health practice, there really isn't anything that you and I can test out for ourselves. I wash my hands before I eat if I have something on my hands, but I'm not interested in following any kind of system of rituals. Oh, and here's another thing. That word pygmy, which means washing your hands with a clenched fist or as if you were in a battle, that's formed from the next word, which is Strong's G4436, which is python, Python, which we would pronounce as python. Python for us is a serpent, but in ancient Greek, Python was the serpent god, Satan. If you don't want to survive, don't listen to me.
Couple comments. Ryder71 says, being too clean makes you susceptible to germs. Uncle Nesta says, I wash my hands after handling money. And Rebecca Hammond says, I wash off the buggy handles at the grocery store.
Yeah, well, you know what? It'd probably be better than washing your hands after you mess with a bug. Hey, I went out to the food bank the other day, and oh shoot, I turned on the wrong thing. Let's see here. There I am. Okay, I went to the food bank the other day, and everybody in there was coughing. This guy tells me he had a cold, and he says, you know, if you go around shaking people's hands, you're going to get a cold. And then he came over to me and he held his hand out, and I just grabbed his hand and shook his hand. I don't care. But, you know, I knew a lady talking about washing your hands too much will make you susceptible. You know, it reduces your ability to fight off germs or whatever. The first house I had, just kind of like this one. It was a cabin way out in the country. And a man and lady down the street, they lived in a shack. And it really was a shack. I don't know how he built it. He says he built it himself, but he was not that smart. And everything on it looked pretty square. But, you know, like the windows didn't have screens in them. And the doors looked homemade. And they didn't shut up good. And I never saw them shut the doors anyway. But they had no electricity in the house. And they had no running water in the house. And those people never bathed. I knew them for 20 years, and they never, ever bathed. And the old lady eventually died. I think she was 73 or something. She died of diabetes. She had they cut her feet off and they cut her legs off. But that wasn't because she didn't wash her hands. It's because she was eating cake all the time, and she was diabetic. Wasn't keeping track of her sugar. But the old man just died at the nursing home right here by me. And from what I understand, he was like 95 years old. And I'm sure that once they brought him in the nursing home, they forced him to bathe. But I know for a fact that man never bathed in his life. And he was like in perfect health all the way up until the day they toted him off because he couldn't take care of it. He just was something, you know, he's just old, 95 years old, 90 years old when they put him in that nursing home, and he didn't have electricity, didn't have running water. And somehow the state felt like it was just a good idea to put him somewhere where somebody could take care of him. Keep him from driving, maybe. But yeah, those people live for a long time. You know, if there was something wrong with not washing your hands, they wouldn't have made it that long.
Couple quick hellos. Shannon Holtz says hello. Sorry I'm late. Uncle Nesta wants to say that Mark is here too, so he says hello. Alex Bates says hello there. First time I've seen you live. Lara A says hello. I need to check why I'm not getting alerts. Laugh out loud. Strangefoot says good day. Marshmallow says hi everyone. Jenna Christine says hi Henry. Hi everyone. And Scorbra says caught the live show. Few comments. Jenna Christine says I don't usually wash my hands before I eat because I wash my hands all day as needed. Marshmallow says I don't wash my hands after collecting chicken eggs. I'm exposed to about 150 chickens, 14 goats, 3 dogs, 3 cats, and several humans on a daily basis. And Alex Bates says, I'd suggest that people want to cleanse the world around them to distract them from dealing with the darkness inside of us.
Hey, I'll tell you what, in the Bible, there is a lot of emphasis put on the clean and unclean, but it ain't about germs. It's about demons. You know, human beings that were possessed by demons were called unclean. Jesus accused the Pharisees who were accusing Jesus of being unclean for not washing his hands. In several places, Jesus accused them of being unclean because they were filled with demons. You know, he said at that instance, he said, look, you waste all this time cleaning the outside of the cup, which, you know, you got this silver cup, you want it to look shiny, you clean it. He says, that doesn't do any good for you. You need to clean the inside of the cup. But when he was saying clean the inside of the cup. He was talking about them. Throughout the Bible, people are always called containers in one way or another, you know, box, bucket, jar, cup, whatever. And it always was about whether a person was filled with the Holy Spirit, filled with a wicked spirit, or empty, spiritually empty. Those are the three types of people that are mentioned throughout the Bible. And it's always, they're always referenced as being like a cup.
Let's see. Matt Wilcox says, well, actually, Rider 71 says the tombs were whitewashed, apparently for sterilization or something, I guess.
I don't know. It made them look nice. I mean, it's like every year they send me, VA sends me a letter. Why don't you come down here and help us to put flowers on the, you know, the headstones at the VA. And people do that. That's a big thing. And I don't know. I think maybe my mom wanted to do it one time. And I said I'd go with her, but she bailed out the last second. My aunt, she always was like into that stuff. I've had friends do that. And, you know, I don't want to be rude. I don't see the point in cleaning somebody's graves. And I don't do it for like out of love or anything. It's like remembering those who have committed the murders that we don't have to commit. And it's like, wait a second, I was one of them guys. I helped do all the murders. I don't have to go down there now. I didn't actually ever murder anybody when I was in the military, but I did like paint and clean the toilets and stuff for the guys that were doing the actual murdering.
Well, when you mentioned the food bank, Matt Wilcox said there was nothing but onions at his food bank over there in California for some wacky reason.
That is weird, man. Because you know they got two different things that they give out. It's like depending on your situation. If you got a bunch of kids, you're at level whatever. You know, you're poor and you got kids, you're up here. And if you don't have any kids and you're poor, you're here. And if you're not that poor, you're down here. And so they have different things they give to people. But man, I'm like at the bottom of the level, and I still got some canned food and got a bag of rice, like always. Got a bag of beans, pintos. In fact, I brought the pintos home, and I was like, man, I got like 20 bags of pintos now. Because 1 2-pound bag of pintos will last me a year. You know, it's like 15 meals for me and my wife. We ate them some today. We put chili powder in them. You had them for beans the other day with sausage in them. Today we made them into chili. But I got one of those pressure cookers, the newfangled ones that everybody wants. That's like the biggest Christmas gift. They call them an Instant Pot, and I love it. I had a real pressure cooker before, and I never could get the temperature right. And I was always overcooking stuff or undercooking stuff. Then you got to start over, and this thing's digital. You know, you don't set it on the stove, and it don't have that little thing on top going. Psh, 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 psh. This thing is like, it's all digital. It's computerized. You press the button, and it goes, psh, and it stops because it's got a little stopper in there, and the pressure stays at exactly the right pressure, exactly the right temperature, and 15 minutes later, you know, you've got a meal. So I'm loving it. I'm having fun with it. You know, I'm not a materialist. Well, I am. I'm a materialist, but I just think it's a good idea because I had 2 pressure cookers here for years. I couldn't get myself to throw them away or donate them till recently. So being able to have one I feel confident with is a good thing. You know, I had one in my FEMA trailer one time, and I had always heard they blow up and you could get killed or whatever. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to let that happen to me. I'm going to get a modern one. And they don't blow up. What happens is there's a rubber ring in there, and if it gets too much pressure, it'll blow that ring out. We were sitting in a FEMA trailer, and I wasn't paying attention, and it stopped that hissing noise because some bubbles had gotten up in it and plugged it up. And we're just sitting there watching TV, and all of a sudden, bam! And we were completely covered in grease. The whole FEMA trailer is just one room. There was a ring about 1 inch wide all the way around the trailer on the wall. And then all that stuff was dripping down all over the sheets. It took us 2 days to clean up that mess. And ever since then, I held on to those 2 pressure cookers for years. I never used them because I was worried about them blowing up again.
Actually, Alex Fate says he remembers watching you boil your chicken in some video. There was no digital cooker back then.
Oh, was I using a pressure cooker? Must have been.
Apparently so.
Yeah, because I just got rid of I had 2 of them for a long time, and I said, well, I got space for 2 of them, so I got rid of one, and then the last one just went to Goodwill maybe 2 years ago. I donated it. Now that I got this digital one, I don't have to go back to Goodwill and buy back my. Every now and then, I'll just donate something to Goodwill, and about a year later, I was like, man, I wish I still had that. I'll go down and buy one. It won't be mine. It'll be one somebody else donated. But it's easier to store them there than to store them in one of them rentals places.
A couple people are talking about onions in the comments, and Thames user Marcel says, "Shame you don't grow onions in the swamp there," or he doesn't think you do.
I threw everything goes to compost. I don't care if it's junk mail or my own body waste or vegetable peelings, bones, anything that the chickens don't eat, the cat don't eat, the dog don't eat, just goes somewhere on the property. And one day I was out there and I found a patch like that big, nothing but onions. And I'm guessing it was just the tops of some onions that had ended up in the compost pile and they grew. But I went out there cutting the grass, a month ago, and I couldn't find them. So I guess they didn't make it. They have those things they call repeating onions, and they come back every year, but you've got to get repeating onions for your area. And if they're not repeating onions, the frost will kill them all the way into the ground.
Couple more hellos. The Thames user Marcel says hello, and Rick Ballard says here but late again. Looks like Ryder71 says that he got his first natural lock last night, and it's a good one.
That's cool.
I guess that's his hair.
In all honesty, I don't know. It's too late for me to go back and do it the way I did, but I was cutting those locks out, the ones that would just form on their own, because I was trying to keep my hair straight, and I had 3 of them right in the back. And now I'm ended up with 3 again anyway. If I had never messed with them, my hair would probably be a lot nicer. I don't know. These are like, this looks like it's one lock, but really, let's see, there's two or three of them tied together back here. And I should probably put a rubber band around that and just let it do right, because it's kind of getting clumps of hair. My mom, I asked her, how many locks you think I got? She said 7, because I had told her 7 before. I said, well, not really true. There's only 3. She said, that's a lot more than 3. No, they're tied together up behind my scalp, and I'm not going to untie them.
Uncle Nesta says that he's 23 months into his dreads.
That's cool.
Next question comes from Gray V111. He says he heard a pastor say to women about their makeup, ladies, if you need to paint the barn, by all means paint it, but do not forget the most important job, muck out the inside. I guess that goes back to the cleaning the cup parable.
Yeah, that's the Pharisees' women's. I couldn't care less about makeup, but a lot of people. My mom, I told her, I said, God doesn't really like you putting stuff on your body and cutting your hair and all that stuff. She says, well, God's going to have to get used to it. I'm not going out of my house without my makeup. I'm a sweet guy. I tell her, Mom, you're the most beautiful 76-year-old on the planet. You don't need to be putting makeup on. She really is. My mom's really good looking for her age. But then again, I saw a picture of what's her name, the real famous movie star, like 1 million BC. What was her name? Raquel Welch. And she's 77 in the picture, and man, she looked good. She's all dressed up, though. If you took her clothes off, she might not look that good.
Uncle Nesta says that Bob Marley called women's makeup war paint.
Oh, yeah, he was getting on to him. He told, some woman showed up at his place, and he said, why are you like being ugly? Like, what?
Yeah, and Alex Fate says it's a thought, but many young men probably haven't seen a woman without any makeup nowadays.
Well, there's a lot of stuff that people do that doesn't make any sense. But you gotta kind of follow the rules. There's not too many people that will follow the rule, or that will break the rules, and I can understand that. I mean, I've spent my whole time most of my life has been spent crying from people beating me up and stuff because I wouldn't follow the rules, and I just couldn't make myself do it. And I don't know, no matter what, even if I was to do it all over again, I wouldn't follow the rules. But if you stand out, you won't have a house. If you do the stuff I do, normally you won't have a house. You won't have a car. You won't have food. So you got to kind of fit in. Women shave their legs. I've never understood that at all. I've seen women that don't shave their legs, and I like it.
Actually, Ryder71 mentions that his wife doesn't wear makeup and has hairy armpits.
I really like that. I remember when I was overseas, you know, people in the United States, that was normal back in the 1980s. And I didn't even know women could grow underarm hair. I never saw a woman with underarm hair, and I just figured that they couldn't grow it, you know. And got overseas, and all them women had hairy armpits, and I thought, oh man, that's nice. And got back on the ship at night, and you know, it's like most of the people that I was with ended up on the ship around the same time. So we went overseas together for the first time. So there wasn't a whole bunch of experienced sailors out there on the streets with us. And we got back, and I'm sitting here listening to these guys, and I'm like, oh, these women are so gross. Oh, they got underarm hair. I'm like, I don't get it.
Well, what else is happening? Doesn't seem like there's many questions at the moment. Everybody, I guess, was caught off guard. So
yeah. Well, you know, me and Alex Toledo were just trying to get this thing started, which is why we were 2 minutes late. And as I was pressing buttons trying to figure out how to get it to work, we found a button that says schedule. So maybe what we'll do is next Saturday I'll go on there and I'll schedule it so that it'll send everybody an email. This is what's going on right now, by the way. At least at my mom's house. You know, it used to be I'd go to run into my mom's to get kumquats. The long ones, when you can see a long kumquat, that's a sour one. And the round ones are the sweet ones. And she's got one of each tree. But I've got a friend now that has a grapefruit tree, and he hates grapefruit. And he's got a satsuma tree, and he loves satsumas, but the satsuma tree probably puts out at least one tree, probably 1,000 pounds of satsumas. And I'm not exaggerating. And so it's hard to go pick kumquats when you know that next week you're going to be loaded. I take and put them on the porch. I don't have room in my refrigerator for as many. I pick fruit until he tells me to stop, you know, which he doesn't have to tell me to stop. I'll just pick until I can't reach nothing else. And yeah, I'll be eating satsumas and grapefruit all day, every day for the next probably 3 months. The last ones I eat will be all mushy and they'll have mold on them and everything.
Uncle Nesta brings up a different topic here, talking about Jesus is the torn veil, and that's represented by the veil that was torn when he was crucified, and we need to enter through the veil of his flesh.
That's actually scriptural, I think. I think there's something that says that. I mean, it's like after Jesus died, I think Paul explained that, maybe in the book of Hebrews. I'm not really sure. And I'm not exactly, it wasn't so much that, you know, here's the deal with religion. And this is why Christians go to war with Muslims. Muslims go to war with Hindus. Hindus go to war with Buddhists, because obviously those people are all going to die and go to hell. Since we're going to heaven, it's our right to kill them. But you're supposed to perform some kind of ritual, like be born again or be saved or washed in the blood or something like that. And all these people that don't believe in Jesus are going to go to hell. It's not really true, because it says in the Bible that Jesus died for all mankind. So sure, his flesh is the veil, and we have to go in through his flesh, but it's not our choice. All the Muslims, Hindus, and Buddhists, they're going in through Jesus. Without Jesus' flesh, they're not going to get in. But Jesus came. He gave up his flesh, so we're all getting in. You know what? How this works out for people? You know, the wicked are not. It says in the Bible that the male stud goats will be separated from the flock, or as the English translation says, Jesus will come to separate sheep from goats. So there's going to be a separation. And, you know, to speculate that all the bad ones go to eternal hell and all the good ones go to heaven, that's not the kind of separation he's talking about. He would, if those were the details, he would have gave them to us. I think he talks about the wheat and the tares or chaff or whatever, and it says that the chaff will be thrown into the fire and burned, or the wheat and the weeds will be thrown in the fire that never goes down and burned, and the wheat will be not thrown into the fire. But I don't think that those verses are not really about, I don't know, I don't want to get off too far into something without a Bible and a concordance and a bunch of notes. But yeah, Jesus' flesh is sacrificed for all mankind. So it's not like the people who do not say the magic words are going to go into a bad place. You know, I believeth on the Lord. Poof, I'm a rapture. All the rest of them, they don't say the magic words, they get punished.
Going back to when you mentioned your recipe, he said Matt Wilcox says he's aware of a kumquat pie recipe. It's basically the same as a key lime, but kumquat instead of lime.
I cannot imagine. My friend that gives me the satsumas, one year, Mama went out there and picked buckets full of those things and brought them to him. And him and his mama took and peeled all of those and got the seeds out and made like marmalade out of them. I can't even imagine that. I gave one of these to my mechanic yesterday, and I sat there and watched him peel that thing, and I thought, what in the world? You know, when I was a little kid, I didn't know anything. I thought maybe you peeled them. They look like an orange. You peel an orange, right? This is a sour one. These are so good. You just eat it. You eat the skin. You eat everything. You spit out the seeds. But it's a sour one. For whatever reason, that one that Mama's got, I think it puts all its male flowers on at one time, and then it puts all the female flowers on. So you don't get very many seeds because we don't have another sour one anywhere around there. Now this one here, the flowers are coming and going all year long. This sucker's full of seeds. There's probably 3 or 4 seeds in this little thing. But you eat the skin too. And they're still good. These are probably better for you than any other citrus fruit because it's kind of hard to make yourself eat the peeling of an orange or the peeling of a lemon or grapefruit or whatever. Now, I think you should. It's supposed to be the healthiest part. But these, by nature, you're going to eat the whole thing. This is like every nutrient that a human could ever need. So all you got to do is eat these and eat something with calories, and you'll be good to go. These here, I hate to take them home. Usually I just eat them under the tree, and when I'm done under the tree, I don't bring any with me.
Speaking of food, Marshmallow says they keep hearing everyone mentioning to prepare by putting up a certain amount of food per person. I'm trying to understand that if we do that, what's the reason if government folks will come and take it?
Yeah, I know. Good question. You know, it's like you can sit there and plan everything, you know. If I was a zillionaire, I wouldn't be doing sustenance and covering. I'd be like building an underground bunker in Montana, and I'd have a yacht somewhere out in the ocean and some helicopters and, you know, hidden food under the ground. I'd have food on trees. I'd have a zoo full of animal food, animals for food. But you do what you can and you hope for the best. And in my experience, you fail. Everything I've ever done in my life has been a failure. So I'm not really putting a lot of faith in my stockpile of food.
Speaking of the kumquats, Jenna Christine says, ooh, we have those in Costa Rica. I didn't know the name. That's a kumquat, did you say? And then Super Use 68 says, I've never had one. Do they taste like an orange or a lemon?
It's the same thing, yeah. It's citrusy. I mean, you know, it's like, I think the sweet ones taste like an orange. The long ones taste like a sour orange, really. But you're eating the peeling too, so you're tasting the peeling. And in fact, you know, with the sour ones, the peeling is sweet. It's like I have peeled them and just ate the center before. That's so sour, it's difficult to chew on it. But when you put the whole thing in your mouth, the sweet and the sour together, it's pretty good. It's a citrusy thing.
Raw brings up figs are pretty healthy, and they have wild lemon also there. He's there.
I just the other day I was looking out at my fig tree, showing somebody. I said, "You know what these are right here? Because they're just sticks now. You know, figs lose their leaves before anything else." So I'm looking out there, and I'm like, "Wow!" I've got one mission fig that I grew. All the rest of them are like, you know, all different other types of varieties. So the mission figs are what they make fig Newtons with, and they're black. They're shiny black, and they're like that big. And I had like I don't know, maybe a dozen. Just sitting there. There's just sticks. My fig tree just sticks. I had a dozen of them figs hanging there. I went out and grabbed a few and ate them. And then my mechanic came over the other day and we went out and picked a few and ate them. I think, or maybe it was somebody else. Somebody came by here for something and we picked figs and ate them. Last of the figs. You know, this is a good thing about kumquats. Okay, this area where I live is not good for citrus because in a hard freeze, it damages the trees terrible. You know, it's like a lot of times they don't even survive. But these things have so many crops. You know, like a grapefruit, you're only going to get one crop a year. You know, and that's like right around Christmas time, or usually that's why, you know, in the past when kids had stockings, like in the 1800s, they would get citrus fruit in their stocking, at least around here, because that's when you pick citrus. But like if you go way, way south, like in the southern tip of Florida or the southern tip of Texas, you can get 2 crops of some citrus, but it's a smaller citrus. These things here, you can get, I think my mom has gotten 3 crops in 1 year when we had an odd year. So if you're in the southern tip of Florida, you almost get 3 crops every year. And the same thing with figs. You'll get an early crop and you get a late crop. And so if you have a whole bunch of different varieties of figs and a whole bunch of different varieties of citrus, as those crops are cycling in, you know, you can always have something out there on tree to eat for most of the year. You know, and you read about the waters of life in the book of Revelation, and it says on either side of the river of life is the tree of life. It's not is the tree of life, or the trees of life. And I think that's basically are the trees that humans are supposed to eat. And it says they will give their crops every month, 12 months of the year. And so, you know, something's got to change about our trees or change about our environment in order for you know, fruit trees to produce year round. But in some parts of the world, that happens almost. I don't know if it happens all the way, you know, it's all 365 days, but you get down close to the equator and there's a lot of fruit being produced over a long time.
Uncle Nesta says if he lived where you do, he'd be growing marijuana.
Hey, well, you know what? If I lived in Colorado, I might try that. But down here, it's like, well, you know, I've got access to all these neighbors' properties. And so there was a time when I got some seeds from somebody and I took and walked through those woods, planting them on all different properties. Because I figured, like, if the police were looking for them with their machine, they've got some kind of thing that can tell if marijuana's out there. That you don't want a whole bunch of rows like a garden, because they'll pick up on that. But some things out there, like we got cedar trees that grow out there. I think they put off the same signature as weed. So if a helicopter's flying over and it just sees one plant and it's in the middle of a wilderness, they're not going to mess with it because they just figure it's cedar. But it was so hard for me to get to all those lots that I never even went back and checked on that stuff. But I mean, it was basically just an experiment because I felt like, you know, it was back when I was into prepping. And I thought, okay, I've got all this alcohol that I hardly drink, but it's a good trade item. Maybe I need to get some marijuana growing and use that for a trade item. But it's illegal. So if I put it on my property and they find it, they take my house. I don't know if you know that's the law. The law, at least in Mississippi, and maybe earthwide or something, but in Mississippi, if they find weed growing on your property, they take your property. So in other words, a person who's living in an apartment that they're paying for, they can grow all the weed they want and not get into trouble. But if you own a mansion and you grow some weed, it costs you $1 million. It's the stupidest system in the world. You know, that everybody gets a different punishment for the same supposed crime.
Going back to the kumquats, Matt Wilcox says he can't see how anyone needs more than 2 kumquat trees on their property. It's too much.
No, 1 is too much. My mom is like begging me to go pick this stuff. And I'm like, for who? I'll pick it for you. Mom, I'm going to have satsumas next week. I don't need no kumquats. But my Aunt Betty, she'd go stripping trees. Aunt Betty would go over there she was one of the people I always thought she was kind of upper class and snooty. When she got older and I finally was an adult and I spent a little time with her, she didn't seem like that at all. She was kind of like a country girl in a fancy house. Man, when Mama had blueberries, Aunt Betty go over there. She would fill 1-gallon Ziploc bags until she didn't have no place to store them in a freezer. And the same thing with kumquats. You go pick kumquats. She was one of the people that make stuff with them. You know, you go to her house, she'd always be baking something, and it always had natural stuff. My cousin Teresa, you know, I go visit her every now and then. I think she's 80. She told me last week she was 84 years old because her brother was having a birthday. He was 80. She's got a deep freeze, like one of the big old giant ones. And I brought her figs one year. I brought her I think it was like a 2-gallon bucket of figs. And I said, if you want more, you can have more. She goes, really? Like, what would you want with more than 2 gallons of figs? How much? What can you do with figs? So I went and brought her another 2 gallons. I said, you want some more? She said, yeah. And I don't know where she was putting them, but I kept bringing figs. And then one day she said, you know, I think I got enough figs for I guess for forever. It's like, well, if you're 84 years old, I'm guessing you're right.
Thames user Marcel says you got to juice that fruit. I don't know if you can juice kumquat, can you?
Yeah, those things. I think juicers like separate seeds and stuff. They'll take and you put a shoe in there and they'll juice it, you know. But the seeds will come. The eyes that your laces go through will come out of the other end of that machine. But yeah, I think a juicer will do that. I ain't sure. I used to have a juicer, but yeah, I'm not into juice. You know, I've got fruit. I just eat the fruit.
Thames user Marcel also says that it takes about 2 or 3 years for fruit trees to bear fruit. He's just starting. He hopes nothing happens, like I assume end of the world, before he's ready.
Well, you know, I know some stuff about Thames user. He's got some property that's so far out that they have to be off grid because there's no way to get electric. He's in Australia, you know, and they've got all kinds of like campers and stuff out there and storage boxes and all that. And yeah, he's pretty much, he's a prepper. I mean, he really is a prepper. He's putting all his stuff aside and doing all these things.
Well, this is kind of a change of topic, but it came up in the chat, and maybe you should chime in. Is Roth says money is the root of all evil. We will remain poor, but then Uncle Nesta chimes in and says that's not true. The love of money is the root of all evil, not the money itself. And then Roth says that's true. And yeah.
Well, both are correct. And that because both concepts exist within that same little short bit of text, the love of money and money itself. The word, that word mammon, this is really cool. I guess I've got a couple of scripts written that I can't produce because I just don't feel good. But I just need to get my camera out there, set it up, and force myself, or maybe just bring a camera in here. I don't want to do indoor videos of really important stuff, but I did a 3-part series about money that I think I even posted one of the videos. But that word mammon, you know, it says mammon is the root of all evil or whatever. Something like that. Do you know what mammon is? This is cool. This is really cool. If you track the gold that's in Fort Knox, and it's not just that gold, but there's gold that's in New York. I'm talking about just bars of gold, stockpiles of bars of gold in New York. In the Swiss banks, there's stockpiles of bars of gold. All of that was actually started from one pile. And so you can go back to the Crusades when you know, the Freemason Crusader guys were going around. They were stealing gold, and they went into, was it Egypt or whoever it was that defeated the Babylonians? I guess the Greeks. Yeah, the Greeks had stockpiled a bunch of gold. Well, where they got that was from the Babylonians, and where the Babylonians got it, I think it says that when Nebuchadnezzar or Nebuzaradan, General Nebuzaradan, went into Jerusalem, he went into the temple. And he could not find the Ark of the Covenant. So they left with everything that was in the temple. And the next part of the story is, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are out there, and Daniel, they're out there in Babylon, and they're stacking this gold up in the middle of plains of Dura. Dura means hard, so it's an area that's all stone, and they stacked this stuff up into like an obelisk. And they told everyone that when I blow the horns, everybody has to bow down and worship this gold. Well, it was the gold they had been worshiping all along, because that was the gold that Solomon had hidden in the temple, because no one was allowed to go into the temple other than the high priest. So Solomon's like, well, let's just put gold in there. That way it'll be safe because nobody goes in there. That's just me. That's my speculation. I don't think anybody ever said that. But from reading the Bible, it seems like that's what happened. So all these Jews have been worshiping gold for 500 years, but they didn't know that's what they were worshiping. They thought that God was in the temple. So they, the Babylonians took it, and the Crusaders took it, and it ended up in the hands of those Knights Templar, right? I'm sorry, I keep looking at my pretty picture. I know the camera's over here. But that's the gold that's in Fort Knox. That gold came from Solomon's temple. But before being in Solomon's temple, this is the cool part of the story. Remember, Jesus said, you cannot serve two masters. You cannot serve God and mammon. Now, we think that word mammon means gold or treasure or money. But the word mammon is taken from ancient Egyptian. When Joseph was taken captive and he was in jail, and they had this crisis coming, Joseph dreamed, it's the king dreamed, Pharaoh dreamed that there would be 7 years of famine. Joseph told him, well, let's build these big underground bunkers and fill them up with wheat, because they had a whole bunch of wheat. And so what they did was everybody, and it worked out. It was a good system because the Egyptians could stockpile, like somebody has a good year, they put 1 billion tons of wheat in there, and then the next guy didn't have any. Well, he could go take out a loan. That was the very first banking system. If the farmers had a bunch of wheat, they got a deposit slip. And if they didn't have a good year, and they had to go in there and ask for wheat, then they would go in and take out a withdrawal. That was the very first banking system. And those vaults, the words that they used to describe them were the same words used to describe a bank vault. Mammon was the name of the wheat that was in those vaults, because the vaults were called mammon. It was wheat vaults. Now, when Joseph's brothers came, remember the whole story is that Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery. They came back to Egypt. They had long done forgot about Joseph. They did not recognize him. They go up there, please, please, we came here. We have no more wheat. But we do have gold. We'll give you gold for wheat. And so all these people were coming in from outside of Egypt. They were not part of the Egyptian banking system. They did not have the right to withdraw wheat. So the Egyptians allowed them to withdraw wheat by trading gold, the only thing they had. So that wheat that was stored in those mammons, where we get the word mammon, that wheat was traded for gold. And when the famine was over and there was no more wheat, the entire earth had gone to the gold standard. That's some good stuff.
Couple quick hellos. Destination Unknown says greetings from Sacramento, California, and Carlos McDermott says, hey, all tuning in late. Speaking of the temple, Kish Cool says that there's something with a new Trump coin and the third temple on the back. And then he also mentions that like a week or two ago, there was the new altar for the third temple that they put a lamb offering on. Did you see that?
Yeah. I saw a video of that. They cut that thing up and they put it in the fire and just burned it, like just killed a lamb and threw it in the fire. And they had a couple of guys that kind of were shuffling around like they didn't really know what they were doing. The younger guy in the video is like, he's trying to figure out what to do, and some older guy comes over and leans over and kind of whispers in his ear, and he nods his head and he starts throwing the meat up on there. What's really strange is that about 5 years ago, somebody sent me some stuff, and I'm like, okay, this is conspiracy theorist nonsense. But there are people who say that in the hands of the government, the U.S. government or the Israeli government, is the original Ark of the Covenant. Now, in museums around the world, they still have some of the implements that were used in the original temple, you know, gold lampstands and bowls and things like that. And they're bringing those to Israel. And I'm like, we'll see if that actually comes about. But since then, I've heard that around the world, world leaders have come together to go back to where Solomon got his stone. Everyone knows where Solomon's quarries are. And they have cut, according to the dimensions given in the original Solomon's temple, not the temple that was built by Persia, not the temple that was built by Rome, but the original Solomon's temple. They've actually stockpiled, cut, polished stones somewhere to completely build the temple. So at this point, if they announce that they're going to build a temple, they could have that temple up in a year or less, because everything's in place. They've got all the sacred implements. Oh, and these guys are doing DNA testing. And here's, if I understand correctly, this is how they're doing it. There's a lot of people that are Jewish who have names, last names, like, you know, Jerry Horowitz or, you know, Bill Seinfeld, all these Jewish names. But some of those Jewish names are associated with people in the Old Testament who were from the family of Aaron. See, that's one of the rules. If you're going to have a priest, no priest can offer sacrifices on the altar unless he's from Aaron's family, from the tribe of Levi. And so they've taken all of these guys that have names that are similar, and they've kind of they've taken DNA tests of all of them. And they've gone through there, and they've got a kind of a general idea of what is the main family line for all of that. So now they're going around the world testing everyone who claims to be a Jew to see if they have the same DNA or close enough similar DNA to these people who has names similar to the names in the Bible based on the tribe of Levi. So they've actually got what they consider to be a legitimate priesthood who is directly descended from Aaron. I don't think it's accurate, but, you know, if that's what they need to do to make themselves feel like they have a legitimate religion, okay. But it's scary because we're actually, it's not scary. And the Bible says when you start seeing this weird stuff going on, to lift your heads erect, knowing that your deliverance is near. We're seeing some weird stuff going on, you know, so my head is erect. I'm glad, you know, if I could. I was thinking about it today. I made an announcement about 5 years ago that I really felt like Donald Trump's son-in-law is the Antichrist. He's eventually going to ascend to that throne because they just keep putting too much emphasis on this nobody guy that's a multi-zillionaire. And it looks like that's where he's going. That dude is 37 years old. If he's the Antichrist, you know what? That means the clock is ticking. He ain't going to live to be 200 years old. So you can figure in his lifetime, you can look at my lifetime. I feel like I'm going to be there. I'm going to see this when it all happens, and I'm 56. So we're getting close. I would love to hear them announce that they're going to build that temple. They'll tell you they're building the third temple. It ain't the third temple, it's the fourth temple. You can read the Bible and it tells you the first temple was Solomon's, the second temple was Cyrus the Great, the third temple was, oh wait, let me get this right now. Yeah, Cyrus paid for the reconstruction of the temple, not Cyrus. Yeah, Cyrus the Persian. Okay, and the next one was Herod. You know, the first temple wasn't built by Solomon. It was built by the king of Tyre, which in the Bible is called Lucifer. So we have the Lucifer temple, Luciferian temple. Then we've got the Cyrus temple. Then we've got the Herod temple. Now we're going to have the Kushner temple, you know, fourth temple. People say that Herod didn't build a temple. All he did was fix the temple. The Bible clearly describes it as being rebuilt. And even the ancient historians say he took every single stone out. He took them out one at a time and replaced them. But there was no, when he got done, there was nothing left of the temple that was put up by Cyrus.
Well, you know, I Googled it while you were talking about this Trump connection, but there's apparently some sort of coin they actually made that has a picture of Donald Trump on it. And it's apparently like in support of the third temple. And about how he supports the Third Temple, and Raw brings up that there's a rabbi glitch or something is some Jewish guy from the U.S. that's in charge of the Third Temple.
Carlos McDermott, who's here, sent me a video a while back. It's probably the same one that Kitchcool's talking about. And man, this looks serious. I mean, if you look at that thing, I mean, it's end time stuff. Prepare thyself. I'm excited.
Super U68 asks, do you think gold and silver are the real currency and that they're okay with God?
Wheat was the first real currency, and God wasn't even okay with that. You know, I mean, it's not like we're going to go to hell if we spend money or take money for work. We're stuck in this system. You know, it's like in the beginning, everybody was talking about growing their dreadlocks and stuff. I'm glad that there are other people that are following my example. I can get away with this. I think if you can get away with it, you need to do it too. But if you can't get away with it for any reason, if they won't let you do it at your job, don't do it and don't feel bad. It ain't your fault. And you know, I'm getting to the point where I can't do it just because I'm old. You know, old people can't grow hair. So, and some people. I mean, I live down in the deep South. Honestly, it's really, really itchy. I shouldn't have this hair. If I wasn't doing what I'm doing, I would just keep my hair cut off. And that's just because, you know, I don't have air conditioning, and I do spend a lot of time in the woods, and you know, it's just one of those. It's not a fashion statement by any means, but it is just one of those things that I do to show my God that I do not adhere to the rituals of hair cutting and washing in the fist, hand washing, you know, at war with germs. I'm at war with demons, not with germs.
Okay, I guess we're over an hour, and Uncle Nesta says, Merry Christmas, and can you go ahead and take us out?
Yeah, I actually was just going to say I love you in Swedish, and I've been practicing all day for BMX Ion is Swedish. He seems to really, it makes him happy because he really laughs like crazy when I try to say I love you in Swedish. But I'll say I love you in English. And I'll also say, as always, if you do not wish to survive, don't listen to us. I guess it's my job to turn this off, right? Goodbye.